this regular meeting for June 20th. We will start out with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Anderson. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Carranza.
Mrs. Carranza is here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Keen.
Here.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Here.
And for the record, Commissioner Heath is an excused absent. So we have 6 present and 1 absent.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll move.
I'll second.
First and second, can we roll call, please?
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Keen.
Yes.
Commissioner Carranza.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We will now move into the public comment portion of the meeting, which is reserved for individuals who would like to address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda tonight that we might have jurisdiction over. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name for the record before making your presentation. And we may take future action on this or direct staff to do so. Does anybody have any public comment they'd like to make? Not on something on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I didn't hear the second.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carranza.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Keen.
Yes.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into our public hearing portion of the meeting. For each of the following items, the public will be given the opportunity to speak. After a staff report, the chair will open the public hearing and invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to make any comments. Members of the public will be invited to provide testimony to the commission following the applicant. Speakers should state their name for the record and can address the commission for 3 minutes. After all public comments have been received, the public hearing will be closed and the commission will discuss the item and take appropriate actions. Our first item on the agenda is 10165 El Camino Real, California Manor. And do we have any ex parte on that? Let's start with Commissioner Carranza.
No ex parte on this item.
Okay.
No ex parte.
No ex parte.
No ex parte.
No ex parte.
And there's none for me too. So we'll go ahead and turn this over to staff for their report.
Okay, thank you. So yes, we'll be discussing the California Manor 2 amendment, and we'll go over it a little bit more, but you have seen this project somewhat recently. So we're just coming back here to amend a condition. The project is at 10165 El Camino Real. It's just about 2 acres, but it was part of a subdivision, which we'll talk about in a minute. The zoning is residential multifamily. And here we can see an aerial view of what the site looks like today. So a little bit of background, like I mentioned, the commission has seen this a few times. The first time in 2021, the Planning Commission approved a new building as well as site improvements and a 2-lot subdivision for the California Manor project. And then in November 2022, the Planning Commission approved a 2-lot subdivision again, but this time with 76 condominium units on the resulting parcel 2 of that. And just a reminder, California Manor is a senior affordable housing project. And so the project originally conditioned all units in the existing building, which we call California Manor 1, and the new building, Cal Manor 2, to be 100% low income affordable. The applicant is requesting to revise the condition for California Manor 2 to include 76 low incomes, or I'm sorry, it was 76 low income units. Those are all of the units in California Manor 2, but they would like to revise it to 67 low income units and 8 moderate income units, as well as 1 manager unit, which does not have any affordability requirements. So just going over the state density bonus law a little bit, the project is 100% affordable. And because of that, it does qualify for concessions related to development standards. So when the applicant came through with their original proposal, they did request 3 concessions at that time, and they were all granted due to their affordable status being 100%. So the state density bonus law also limits a city's ability to require additional parking when the project is limited to seniors, which are classified as 62 and older. In this case, when there is a public transit system nearby, and since there is a regional transit authority system nearby, we did grant them a parking reduction as well with that project. So based on the concessions requested, the applicant must continue to restrict the project to be 100% affordable. And this excludes, again, managers units, which do not have to meet that affordability requirement. However, with the state's density bonus law, it does allow up to 20% of these units to be at a moderate rate, while the rest of the project has to be at a low income rate. 20% is allowed to be at a moderate rate, which is what the applicant is requesting to up the number of moderate units in the development. So just to show you what the previous condition stated, it did restrict all 171 units in both California Manor 1 and 2 to be low income affordable for ages 55 and up for a term of no less than 55 years. So the 55-year part of the condition is staying the same. However, the condition is changing a little bit to change the number of affordable units on the California Manor 1 or Lot 1 of the project to 93 units instead of 95, being low income affordable. And this takes into account 2 managers units, which again, according to density bonus law, do not have to qualify for the affordability limits that the rest of the units do. All of the units in this California Manor 1 will be limited to seniors aged 62 and above because of that parking concession that they were originally granted. And then the units in California Manor 2 or on Lot 2 will go from 76 units being 100% low income affordable to, again, 67 units that will be 100% low income affordable, and 8 units that would be rented at a moderate income limit. And just for reference, these affordability limits are actually set by the county. So that's what these numbers are based off of. And then just to clarify, in California Manor 2, they are also allowed to have 1 manager's unit, which doesn't have to comply with the affordability standards. And the condition just clarifies that managers' units remain unconstricted as to rent and income. So in conclusion, this project, this revision that the applicant is seeking will help the applicant in securing funding to construct the project. The revision does remain consistent with the California State Density Bonus Law, as I previously mentioned, but I do just want to mention that this revision will have a slight impact on the city's regional housing needs assessment numbers that we get from the state. They require so many low income, very low income, and moderate units that the city has to build within a certain time frame. So by changing this condition, it will reduce the number of low income units that we will be building just a little bit, and change those to moderate income units, which normally we don't really have an issue meeting our moderate income numbers. Usually the lower income ones are more difficult to gain. So that will affect the city in that way, but the project is exempt from CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, because it can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility that the enactment of this ordinance would have any effect on the environment. It's just changing the affordability. The project overall has been approved already. And with that, staff's recommendation is to basically approve the change in the condition that I previously stated, which would allow for 2 managers units in California Manor 1 to not be income restricted, and then to allow more moderate units in California Manor 2 to be allowed. As always, the Planning Commission can include modifications to the project or conditions of the project. The Planning Commission can determine that more information is needed and refer the item back to staff. Or finally, the Planning Commission may deny the project, but if the commission chooses to do so, they should specify what findings cannot be made. With that, staff's available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Dennis?
Yes, one of my questions had to do with the regional housing needs, and so I'm glad that you included that, because it seemed like there'd be some type of change in that. It was, yes.
There we go now. And I'm making sure, because if it's not on, it doesn't get recorded properly.
Okay. Maybe just how I was facing the
Yeah,
microphone.
thank you, much better.
So I understand, because I was looking for senior housing units, some definition for senior housing units when it came to affordability, and obviously didn't find any based on what I just heard. And so what is the justification for changing some of the units to moderate? Are they larger? Are they newer? Or they have more something in them to make them special?
It's really just about their financing for their project. So the way they got their grant, some of the units do need to fall just above the lower income limits. They're not really going to be at the top end of the moderate. They're actually only slightly above, but they fall into that category. So it's a numbers game. It's not really about these units being better quality. They might be. I don't really know much about that, but it's really their financing on their end relies on this number mix to work out. That's
Yeah.
what I understand.
Okay, it just seemed when I was looking at the affordability numbers, 1-person household, moderate income, $91,750 annually, I would imagine. Seems like pretty high number, but I guess.
Moderate's close to market rate for housing. It's close to, regular income. It's, a lot of units that we have in the city of Atascadero fit a moderate category just by design, just by the nature of their design, or affordable by design. So we make our quota almost every year on moderate units in terms of our RENA. We don't make our quota every year on low and very low and extremely low. Those are always hard to get. Is this a significant impact to that? Just the 8 units? Really, it's not. It is a slight impact to that, but does it really dramatically alter our ability to approve or deny the project? No, because they still meet all of the qualifications to get their density bonus and to get their concessions they're asking for and for the project design. But it's still a discretionary action. And they didn't find this out until we got far down the project. We've already recorded the affordable housing agreements. They're already ready to break ground on this project. And then they came to us and said, we realized we made a mistake on the numbers, and this is what we intended to do with this project.
Will we need to compensate in some way when it comes to the RENA number? We're gonna have to report that the number that we reported before is going to be less, or?
Well, we don't report until these units actually get completed. We do a preliminary estimate every year of what units are coming down the pipeline, but we also do a final estimate every year of what actually got produced in the city. We haven't done that for this project yet.
Mhm.
So we'll simply be reporting on what gets built, when it gets built, and when these affordable covenants get recorded again.
So just for knowledge purposes, when you project and then you do the final numbers, are they 10% off, 5% off? Is it there?
You know, it can vary all over the place. For example, we've got a couple of projects that have been approved for several years and they just haven't built them yet. We thought
Mhm.
they'd be built by now. And that might comprise 100 units that's sitting out there right now that's got entitlements and they haven't moved forward yet for financing reasons. And so our projections are going to be a lot different in that scenario. When they change a little bit like this, it's not a big difference, but you know, there's projects, for example, over at the 10850 El Camino Real, which is formerly known as a Harper project, where there's a big number of units there that haven't been built yet. There's the principal project hasn't been built yet. There's multiple phases in Emerald Ridge that haven't been built yet. There's a people's self-help housing project known as Del Rio Ridge hasn't been built yet. It's got 50 or 60 or how many 70 units. So there's actually several hundred out there right now that we had projected that aren't here yet. But ultimately they'll happen within this RENA cycle. We're pretty confident because they're good projects and they've got entitlements and they're starting to move forward on some of these things and find solutions. So
Okay,
it doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as we get close to our numbers. And as long as we've got policies that support those numbers, and then we're not getting in the way of getting these numbers completed.
yeah, it was for such a long time when we just had to designate the land, right? And didn't have to build the units.
The state is getting stricter and
And
stricter.
now the state's changed a little bit
Yeah.
on that, which was always kind of dumbfounding to me. So we designate property for use, but no one builds it. But thank you for your explanations.
Any other questions for staff?
I just had one. Excuse me if it was on the report already, but how many persons per household in each unit? Is that? I would imagine it was one or two.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't seem
don't,
like it would be a family of four for senior. housing.
yeah, I don't think that's a standard in the state's regulations, but maybe the applicant can expand.
I was
on-
just referring to the affordable housing standards for the county planning
Mhm.
department. And so it jumps, for the income limits. For instance, from what I'm reading here on page 14 of our packet, persons in the household. One, it goes low income is 61K almost to moderate income is 91. So it's a $30,000 difference. Whereas if you get up to four, it's a $54,000
And
difference.
that's
So
typically based on bedroom count.
sure,
you
yeah.
know,
So
that's
I was
really what
just
it
wanting to
is, yeah.
clarify that.
Yeah, and there's a variety of units in this.
Because regardless of the RENA. Really, regardless of what we're supposed to be doing, just low income units are very hard to find. Period. So I'm empathetic to that. And I'm curious if the applicant is here, how many units, if it is all 8 that they need to secure the funding? And if the project's going to be folded or delayed significantly with the numbers. So.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, then we will go ahead and open the public hearing and invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to address us.
Good evening, Harry Hamilton of Upgrade Engineering. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Mariah, commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. They couldn't make it tonight, so they asked us to show up. We did the civil plans for it, helped them with the final map, and we're actually doing the construction stage. It is actually under construction, building purpose. They're actually building, so it's nice to see. Generally, it's kind of one of those like in the weeds thing where there's the state rules and then there's the county rules. So this project is funded partially under a state tax credit. So there's the preliminary kind of memorandum of approval that they got from the state. That said, you will be awarded tax credits when this thing. So when it goes from the construction loan to the permanent loan is when the tax credit goes through. The tax credit rules that they've agreed to actually limit, and this is where it's kind of just in the vernacular, but the actual tax credit that they've agreed to is 30%, or sorry, 11% of the units, 8 of them are going to be for 30% of adjusted or average median income. So while what the city's definition looks at is low or better, there's a substantial number of the units that are actually very low. It's just the state's numbers don't quite align with the county's numbers. So there's, the state gives a tax credit, the county gives another thing. Some of them don't. So really, the project generally overall is creating affordable housing. They're creating some very low affordable housing to offset the moderate. It's just that they needed a little bit more income. So it'll be there. I think it'll be a good project. I think we just have a long run. Can answer some of the other technical questions that we have as far as the number of people. Generally, there, if you look at the unit mix, there's a lot of single occupancy studios, a lot of one bedrooms, and the biggest unit itself is a 2-bedroom. So I can't imagine 62 plus community, you'd have maybe more people. I can't imagine that, but I would guess that would be the last. There's nothing in the tax credit that specifically limits the number of people that could. All I got. If you got anything else?
Okay. Any questions from of an applicant? Any questions? Okay. Oh,
I
Victoria.
just really wanted you to get those extra steps in. So at this point, without really getting into the weeds of the numbers, if we were to approve with a modification of 50% of what you're asking for to be modified, is that something that would just, you believe would fold the project? Are you looking for an all or nothing tonight on this, or?
It's my understanding that in order states, in order for the tax credit to be approved, everything has to come in. So it is kind of an all or nothing.
That's what I'm hearing. I just needed to hear
I
that.
imagine if you say no tonight, then the next thing will be up to council, because I think we're at the point where we are committed to building this project and we have to. And in fact, the lender was happy enough to approve the lending on it. So obviously, as construction started, they figured, hey, this is just some language that needs to get cleared up. And so that's why we had to come back here, because it's a condition of approval. We have to say, hey, let's clear up the language. I think on a staff level, I think we know what we're trying to do and achieve, but I just think because it's a change to a condition.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this issue? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to Planning Commission for either discussion or motion.
So can you give any more explanation to the difference between the state and the county numbers for income levels?
I think Harry explained it pretty well. It's
Okay.
a little strange, but essentially, yeah, their numbers don't exactly align with our numbers. It's some very interesting math. So what it does, it puts those 8 units just outside of what we call our low category. And so they fall right over the threshold into the moderate income category. So they're still going to be affordable units. In fact, they're not going to be at the top end of the moderate category, maybe at the bottom end of it. So that's really the best I can tell you. Although when it comes to RHNA doesn't care whether they're at the bottom end of or top end of each category. Those are the categories. And so I understand their predicament. It actually took us as staff and them several weeks to decipher what had happened, because they initially thought we had recorded their affordable housing agreements incorrectly with the wrong numbers. But the reality is it was accurate. It's just accurate based on the city's policies, not on the county's policies. So they had wanted to go with that all along. It's just that that's not how we wrote our resolution originally at the Planning Commission. It's not how we wrote our conditions. So when we brought that to our city clerk and said, hey, can we fix this administratively? It was no. And our city attorney said the same thing. No, this has to go back to the Planning Commission, even though it's a technicality. So.
And so the RHNA numbers are a state thing?
We have to report to the state every year on what housing we predict is going to get produced and what housing actually gets produced in each of the income categories, even the market rate categories.
But when we're evaluating them for the city, we're using the city level of income categorization, not
Well,
the
it's
state
actually
level?
county. The
Sorry,
county of San Luis Obispo, for our region, for every city, establishes the thresholds for affordable housing, and the state, and under their tax credit guidelines, does something a little differently when they have their mass.
I'm just
And
trying
so-
to get, so when
Yeah.
we report our RHNA numbers, it's based on the county's levels, but the state tax credits is like a totally different, probably a different bureau. And so they just report it differently.
Yeah, and so the numbers just don't quite jive.
Okay. Okay.
So
That sort of
that's
makes
how we
sense in the
figured it out.
governmental.
Took Mariah and
world.
I several weeks to figure out what the discrepancy was. I
Yeah.
think.
Okay. Perfect.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
This seems like a formality. And it doesn't seem like there's much of a choice here if we want this project to continue to go through. From what my understanding is, I know this isn't a motion, but I felt like I had to say that because I'm empathetic to low income and want to modify this so much, but I understand that there's not a lot of room. And there's been a couple weeks of big calculators in front of these two, plus the developer. So I would make a motion to approve the project and the modification as is and staff recommended.
I'll second.
Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner Carranza,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Keen,
Yes.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Let's see. The next item on the on our agenda is the Atascadero ABC Church. And I understand that there's some modifications to this, so if we can. Do I need to go through ex parte yet, or?
I paused. So I just have, yeah, let me just start by saying I just heard from our city clerk and we are going to have to continue this item. So staff's going to recommend continuance of this item to a date certain, July 18th. It would normally go to July 4th, but our city hall is closed on the 4th. It's a national holiday. So it automatically goes 2 weeks further forward. And the reason for this continuation is I understand that we did have some reports that went to code enforcement on this property, on this project, and it's kind of made this more complex. And so we have to step back and analyze that situation and make sure everything is clear in order to give a path to make a recommendation on this project. So at staff's recommendation tonight, the process here for a continuation is we still do need to open up public comment, and the commissioners would need to make an action and recommendation on that, or
Okay.
a motion and recommendation and vote on that.
Great.
To that date.
So this item is for 6225 Atascadero Avenue, Atascadero Bible Church. And do we have any ex parte on this item?
No ex parte.
No ex parte.
I had a discussion with Sean Russell about the project today, just to get an overview of what was he was expecting.
No ex parte.
And none for me as well. So it looks like we will go ahead and open up the public hearing and invite anybody that'd like to speak on this issue. This will be continued, so to a date certain of July 19th, 18th. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back for a motion to continue this item.
I'll move to continue.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Carranza,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Keen,
Yes.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to continue.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 4, which is a conditional use permit for 6805 Sycamore Road. And we can get some ex parte here. We'll start at the end again with Commissioner Carranza. Any ex parte?
I was a bit distracted by our audience here.
This is the RV storage.
Yes, I'm here now. I did speak with the general manager of Atascadero Mutual Water Company. there were some items on the phone. I talked to him about half an hour and we discussed financing. This lease, what it would do potentially for shared stakeholders. We discussed well usage on the land and general city things.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes,
No ex parte.
Randy.
No additional ex parte. I did speak with a Saline Indian tribe council leader previous on this, but I have no additional other than what was stated previously.
Jason.
No expertise. I did visit the site and look around, but I didn't speak to anybody.
And Tori.
No ex parte.
And none for me as well. So we'll go ahead and turn the time over to staff for their staff report.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this is the second time this is coming to the Planning Commission. This is the Sycamore RV Storage Conditional Use Permit at 6805 Sycamore Road. The project is in the Industrial Park Zoning District, or also the Industrial Land Use Designation as designated by the general plan. The green that you see to the north there is open space area. And then to the south, you have Union Pacific Railroad and then public land to the south of that in blue. The property itself is about 23 acres, but the area that's being talked about tonight is a 6-acre area that's to be leased by the applicant. So here we have a little bit of a better view. This is an aerial view of what the site looks like today. As you can see, there's not too much going on the site. The red is the total site area. The yellow is the area that's proposed to be leased for the RV storage. And then in the bottom, that part in blue is not a part of the project. And that's a construction yard currently that is not going to be impacted by this. So a little bit of background about the project going way back to 2007 was when the council adopted a zone text change, which established a new plan development overlay zone, or PD 31, for a proposed BMX facility at the time, but this facility was never constructed. The site is currently owned by Atascadero Mutual Water Company, and it just contains that existing fenced construction yard and some storage buildings, but nothing else is on the site at this time. So as I've mentioned before, this is the second time the Planning Commission has seen this. It was brought before you in November of last year, 2022. At this hearing, there were concerns brought up from a local Native American tribe about the sensitivity of this project, which led the Planning Commission to ask for a Phase 1 archaeological survey to be conducted. At this time, the Planning Commission also suggested a 10-year time limit on the conditional use permit, which we'll talk about in just a second. So the site is located right on Sycamore Avenue, which is adjacent to the Salinas River. As you can see in the previous image, that green area is the area that abuts the Salinas there. And then again, there's a construction yard with storage buildings already on the site. And the project being proposed today is an RV storage lot that would have a total of 262 parking spaces. This would be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 would have 138 parking spaces, and then phase 2 would have 124. And then there would be some improvements included with those as well. Phase 1 would include improvement of the Juan Batista de Anza Trail, and also a drainage retention basin. And then phase 2 would primarily just be constructing the parking spaces for the RVs. So since this project includes outdoor vehicle storage that's in excess of 10,000 square feet, it is required to get a conditional use permit approval from the Planning Commission, which is why it's here before you tonight. So going back to the previous recommendation that the Planning Commission proposed, recommending kind of a time limit on the project of 10 years. So this is really difficult to do because the conditional use permit runs with the land. It doesn't really even change with owner. So basically, once it's approved as an RV storage lot with these conditions, it would run with the land. And as long as the conditions are being adhered to, and the site the use continues and doesn't become vacant, it can continue to be used as an RV storage lot, which is the reason it makes it difficult to put a time limit on it, because we don't really have the purview to stop the use or, for lack of a better way of saying it, kick the use off. So moving on to the phasing of the project, as I had mentioned before, you can see phase one would be creating the new parking spaces that are outlined in yellow there, as well as that stormwater infiltration basin that you see kind of to the left of the screen. And then the San Juan Bautista Trail does go through the site. It kind of traverses through where that stormwater retention basin would be. So part of the project is to realign the trail and kind of define it further. Right now, it's a little bit more of a worn dirt area on the site. It doesn't have a lot of strong definition. So part of this project would be to actually add a trail base, add landscaping, remove the chain link fence along Sycamore just to make it a little bit more appealing to pedestrians to use that trail, but it would abut that RV storage lot. And then the only other change that I haven't mentioned is there would be a new gate. It would not be a manned gate. It would be something like that you would have a code for in a self-service area, and that's right between where you see that trail ending and then the red area that's being leased by the construction yard right now. And this is actually phase two, not phase one. So this would be completing the rest of the parking spaces on the site that you see there in blue. Remove the dividing fence that would be between them. So it's just one contiguous parcel. And then extend the new vinyl coated chain link fence that would be adjacent to the Salinas River, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but basically just completing out the project. But the major improvements are conditioned to be done with phase one of the project, such as the trail realignment, and then of course the stormwater infiltration basin. So I did want to update the Planning Commission on the archaeological assessment, since that's one of the things that was requested. The applicant did work with a certified archaeologist to request a phase one archaeological survey, otherwise known as a records and literature search, that revealed that there had been previous studies within the area, and these studies did find cultural resources. However, there is some interesting history on the site where in the late 60s, early 70s, the parcel was flooded, completely flooded, which led the county at the time and Caltrans to, it led the county to build up that berm along the area. If you go out to the site, there's a berm along the Salinas River, and that was to aid in preventing future flooding of the site. And then after that was built up, the county and Caltrans used that site basically to dispose of excess materials like asphalt and concrete in the area. I believe it was actually leased to Caltrans. So it was used for a lot of storage of construction materials. So based on the account of the water company who owns the property, there's about 10 feet of fill on the site already. Which the project doesn't require much grading, but the grading that will occur will most likely just hit fill dirt. So based on the archaeological assessment, the recommendation was that no further investigations are necessary at this time. We did keep in condition number 25 that was previously in the report, which would require an archaeological monitoring during ground disturbing activities. So basically, anytime they are grading the site, there would need to be an archaeological monitor on site. And this is just kind of an extra protection to make sure that nothing is disturbed, or if anything's found, that it's protected and handled appropriately. So here's another picture of the site plan. And this is kind of the overall view of the improvements. You can see, let's try to see if I can point to things. But the blue fencing along the bottom, along Sycamore Road there would be that split rail fence or a 4-foot fence along that De Anza trail. So instead of the 6-foot tall chain link fence that's there now, it would be a little bit of a softer transition between the street and the trail there. And then there would be a 6-foot tall vinyl chain link fence between the actual RV storage lot and the trail. And then the purple line that you see along the back there, that would actually utilize the fence that's along Sycamore and relocate it to the Salinas Riverside because it's less visible and it would repurpose materials that are already there. There would be a new 6-foot tall vinyl chain link coated fence between the two phases, which I'd mentioned would go away when phase 2 is built out. And then we'll go over some of the other features on the site, such as lighting and security. But in talking about landscaping, the applicant did provide a landscape plan, which primarily focuses landscaping along that trail corridor. One of the conditions that staff added was to really focus taller vegetation along the interior fence between the RV storage lot and the trail, as opposed to between the trail and Sycamore, in order to avoid creating kind of a hidden corridor. So the RV storage lot would be screened, but the trail itself would be pretty visible from Sycamore Road. And here's the landscaping that's being proposed throughout the rest of the site. Since the applicant submitted the plan, they did request to remove some of the additional landscaping throughout the actual RV parking area. And this was really out of a fear that the landscaping would just be destroyed anyway, since it's just small amounts of landscaping within basically a parking area that it would be driven over and destroyed. So one of the conditions that staff also added was that the applicant include landscaping in front of the existing construction yard. That was not something that was included on the original landscape plan, but since it's along the frontage, although it's not actually along the trail corridor, that's something that staff wants to see just to complete out the site and those landscape improvements. And just for reference, there will be 6 coast live oak trees that will remain on site and be protected during construction. And those are the ones that you see around that existing construction site. So the municipal code does require that at least 5% of the lot in industrial zones be landscaped. But the applicant is requesting an exemption to this requirement due to, again, the maintenance concerns and the visibility of that additional landscaping onto the site. The site is screened by fencing and landscaping along Sycamore Road, which would make the internal landscaping difficult to see. So really, you'd only see it if you were actually driving around the site. And then again, maintaining this landscaping would be difficult because they would need to irrigate it and protect it from vehicles driving over it. The municipal code does allow the planning commission to approve a modification to eliminate the maximum landscape requirement. So they would not have to meet that 5% landscaping if it can be found that the existing vegetation, the topography, or the structural arrangement preclude the need for landscaping. And so based on the location and maintenance, staff does agree with the applicant that it would be difficult to maintain and wouldn't really add a lot of visual appeal to the site. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission allow for this modification to only require landscaping along Sycamore Road and then that Juan Bautista de Anza trail. So moving on to fencing, I briefly kind of mentioned it before, but one of the things that was actually discussed at the design review committee was the applicant requested to utilize the existing chain link fence along Sycamore Road and relocate it along the Salinas River. Typically, our code requires that all chain link fencing be vinyl coated and screened by vegetation, but because of its location along that tall berm in the back, they're requesting to utilize just a plain metal chain link fence. And the design review committee was in support of this, of just relocating that front fence. So with that, the staff is recommending approval of relocating that front fence and just putting a new chain link fence along the back there where that blue line is on the map. And I just went over that. So now moving on to lighting and security of the site. This is often a concern when we're talking about a use such as this, where there's not necessarily someone manning it, and it's a little bit further out in the city. So there are 7 new light poles that are proposed to be a maximum of 20 feet tall. However, staff is recommending to decrease this to 16 feet tall just to decrease the light spread a little bit and spilling onto adjacent parcels and onto the Salinas Riverbank at all. And then the applicant is proposing, and staff has conditioned, that the lights dim to low levels until motion is detected. So they'll remain dim until they detect motion. And then for security, the applicant is planning to continue to contract with a local security company that has 24-hour coverage. The applicant does have another facility in the city that they use this for, and that's what they're proposing to do for security for this site. And they're a little bit hard to see on here, but you can see the red circles are the locations of the light poles. So these again would be conditioned to be no taller than 16 feet tall and then be motion activated. And then the purple boxes that you see are proposed locations of security cameras around the site. So here are some pictures of the site. The first one is looking kind of where the new gate area would be from Sycamore Road. The right of that picture is that existing construction yard. And then that bottom site is again looking from Sycamore Road onto the site. This top picture is really what you're looking at is where the trail will be realigned, kind of along where the fence is there. That chain link fence will be removed, and that 4-foot tall split rail fence will replace it. And then the bottom picture is facing the opposite direction, and that is looking at what would be phase 2 of the project, kind of where that bush is in the back. Unfortunately, I can't point to it on here, but that's where phase 2 would basically continue on the site past that. Here's a picture of that existing construction yard. You can see in front of it, there's just a lot of wood chips there right now. So part of the conditions from staff would be to, again, landscape that area just to finish out the landscaping along Sycamore Road. And then you can see that trail entrance on the bottom there is what's existing today for the trail. So staff has added quite a few conditions to try and make sure that the site continues to operate in the manner that it's being approved as tonight, if it is approved. Just for vehicle storage, no cargo containers, no washing of vehicles, no dumping of materials. The realignment of the trail shall happen with phase 1. There are conditions about the fencing that we discussed and the lighting. And then again about the archaeological monitoring during all ground disturbing activities. And then the Public Works Department does have a few conditions relating to stormwater and making sure that if the RVs are leaking, that they have spill kits on site and that those issues are taken care of immediately. So there are a series of findings that need to be made by the commission in order to approve the project. And if even just one of these findings can't be made, then the commission may deny the project. So I'll just go over and read these really quick as a refresher. The first one is that the project or use is consistent with the general plan. The proposed project or use satisfies all applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance. The establishment and subsequent operation of the use will not be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the general public. The proposed project or use will not be inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood. The proposed use or project will not generate a volume of traffic beyond safe capacity of roads around the project. That the project is in compliance with any pertinent city policies or criteria. And then we do have a specific finding to grant an exception to the vegetation standard of at least 5% on site. And this is that existing vegetation, topography, or structural arrangement preclude the need for landscaping. And I do just want to quickly mention that the zoning of this project is industrial. So when we're talking about consistency with the general plan, that is something that was looked at when the general plan was updated the last time. The zone was specifically designated as industrial, and these uses were called out as being appropriate in the industrial zone. So I do just want to highlight that. The environmental determination is that the project qualifies for a class 4 categorical exemption from CEQA because it consists of minor alterations to the land. There's really not a lot of grading or improvements that have to happen in order to create this use. So staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolution to approve the conditional use permit allowing a new business for outdoor recreational vehicle storage in the industrial park zone. The Planning Commission, as I'd mentioned in the last project, can include modifications to the project. The commission may determine that more information is needed and refer the item back to staff, or the commission may deny the project. And again, if the commission chooses to do this, they must specify what findings cannot be made and provide a brief oral statement based on the staff report, oral testimony, site visit, correspondence, or any other rationale introduced and deliberated by the Planning Commission. And with that, staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? I'm sure.
Thank you for your presentation. So at the very beginning, you talked about basically a sunset on the use permit and said that that's something that we don't have control over. Is that my understanding?
Let me weigh in on that. We do have control, but we have not had good history, not only in Atascadero, but in many cities. There's been a lot of case law where once someone makes substantial improvements and investments in the land and they're entitled to have a land use, it's very difficult to cease that land use. So you can put it on there, but I think what staff is saying is it is somewhat problematic. And our legal team has advised in the past that it's quite problematic. We have done this in other circumstances and have not been successful in sunsetting that land use. It's a very difficult thing to police and cease and say, all right, you spent all this money, you've got the site, everything's working okay, unless we have performance conditions that say, okay, you have not complied with your use permit, you're not complying with your operational standards, we're getting complaints, which in case we bring it back to the Planning Commission to review that use permit. But we have that in the code already, where we can do that at any time. We also have a nuisance provision in the code as well. So those are other ways to protect land uses and to protect neighborhoods. But the provision of actually ceasing the land use generally is not effective. Instead, it's best to stick to performance standards if we were going to motion to approve this project. And so I think we should look at, I mean, that's something we would talk about later. If we get down the line and commission wants to approve this project, let's look at those conditions and see how the conditions we have are crafted towards this project maintaining its reasonableness for this site.
The applicant has designated a phase 1 and a phase 2 project. Is there a timeline being given to the city about when phase 2 would come into effect?
No, that's a good question, but no, there hasn't been a timeline provided.
Could, as the commission, could we modify the approval to just phase 1 only and then have the applicant, if he wants to do phase two, come back for subsequent approval for phase
Yes.
two.
You may do that.
A little bit bothered by the modification request on the landscaping in that based on the behavior of people who might not drive in the right spots, we're not going to put landscaping there because they might run over it. It seems to me that that might be, since they have cameras and lighting around, that they could monitor the site. They have security that is going to be there somehow 24 hours a day. It seems like if someone runs over landscaping and ruins it, either they repair it or they get kicked out. And for us to kind of give them a modification based on someone's behavior seems kind of odd to me.
I think in this case, it's not the behavior, it's the land use and zoning. This is a manufacturing zone. It's our most intensive zoning district in the city. Its intent is to have things that are very similar to the Sycamore Industrial Park, which is next door. So, or in storage uses and things like that. It's our sort of least attractive zone in the city.
Yeah.
Does that mean that they're exempt from those requirements? No, but it does mean it is more difficult to implement and maintain those in all scenarios, but it's completely at the commission's discretion how you want to treat this particular land use and its conditions.
Okay. Our family benefits from the Sycamore facility next door to this. I would say that that is a very old facility and is not really a model to pattern things after at this point, because it is very, very old. The blue fence that you noted along the Sycamore Road, is that to be located on the right of way? Where is it to be placed?
Yeah, so yes, that would be located in the place of this chain link fence here. So it would have to, it couldn't be in the right of way, but it could be along the right.
And we know that the chain link fence represents the right of way in some way. Often, I mean, streets aren't in the center of a road, in the paper road. And so the right of way could maybe be in the pavement, or the right of way could be beyond the chain link fence. Do we know where it's at?
So there was a survey done with the project. They worked with a civil engineer here. So I don't know actually if this if the chain link fence is right along that line or where that is in relation.
If there's a recorded survey, then there would be, if there's the fence is within 5 feet of the line normally, then they would show it on the recorded map as being within a certain distance of that right of way. And so it'd be interesting to know that if it's one way or the other. There's a letter in the information that you gave to us from the Northern Chumash Tribal Council. They had 5 bullet items. And from what I heard you say, we basically have accomplished 1 and 2, which was an archaeological record such encompassing the project site and half-mile area surrounding it. Phase 1 archaeological survey at the work site, and if needed, an extended phase 1 survey. So we're saying, based on what we have, there is no need for the extended phase 2 study based on what the consultant provided to us.
That's correct. Yeah, what we've determined here is this site is essentially a reclaimed site. This is a site that historically didn't exist in terms of a development site. It's been washed away and put back with materials from a lot of other sites. In sites like that, it's extremely unlikely you're going to have archaeology. Now, archaeological sites are extremely common along the Salinas River. This area has a lot of history, has a lot of archaeology. And every time there's a development project, we have archaeological discoveries, and it's you know, an area that needs to be protected. But this particular site is an anomaly in the fact that it's been washed away by the river and refilled with materials from other properties. So it's probably not going to be conducive to that. And furthermore, this kind of a project, with the exception of the small detention basin, isn't going to develop buildings on the site, which is not going to necessitate foundations and massive excavations. So it's a fairly non-invasive kind of project from an archaeological standpoint. So two compelling reasons that say there's not compelling evidence based on the phase one that a lot more needs to happen here with this proposed land use.
So the surfacing of the road is going to be decomposed granite, in the parking area.
Correct.
So there won't be any cleaning or let's say if it gets rutted up, there won't be any shaving of that to try to level it out or anything, or is that going to be allowed by the permit for them to clean up when they need to clean up? The reason why I'm asking is that you noted that there were some cultural resources found in the survey that was done. And so we're saying that those are not an anomaly because of the history of the site. They might have been there, they might have not been there, we don't know because of what has occurred. And so I'm just, what if there is additional work done, again, slight grading of the road that turns up something that we don't know is below the ground or just below the surface. I'm concerned about that. Has the Northern Chumash Tribal Council been notified that items 1 and 2 on their bullets have been met? And we're not proceeding with 3, 4, and 5.
So they were notified in the full report of the archaeological survey. Part of the process is to notify the Native American tribes. So they were notified, and I believe that they commented, but it was kind of inconclusive. So
the planning services condition number 10. No cargo containers, inoperable vehicles, inoperable boats, or inoperable RVs shall be stored on the site. Only currently registered operable vehicles or RVs may be stored on the site. How are we going to know that none of those vehicles are on the site? We're going to rely on the applicant to reporting to us that there are none? Or we can't walk by and say, oh, that's inoperable, or that one is. That one has a license, this one doesn't. So how are we going to get that information?
We should give that duty to the planning commission to go out there and check.
No,
God, just teasing. Yeah, no, there's some of these conditions are difficult to continue to enforce, I must admit. So what that does, it's not what we're going to go out there and monitor this site all the time, but a lot of these kinds of sites over years can fall into dilapidation, and you end up with abandoned things and you end up with a mess. That gives us the ammunition to go in there and say, you are not in compliance with your use permit. We have issues with the appearance of what's happening here. So we're not going to go and check to make sure that every single vehicle that's in there is currently registered, operable, and working. It's more of a blanket issue. We have problems when you go out and say, hey, we've got, some aesthetic concerns, or we've got some complaints. Primarily, most of these situations are going to be complaint based. Staff, with our limited staff, we've got 2 planning staff, 3 planning staff sometimes. Do we have time with our multiple projects to go out and monitor these things? No, absolutely not. We're complaint based. So we rely on these conditions being designed to be able to take care of themselves, and for the public and for the applicants and for the adjacent property owners to make us aware when there's issues that are not working. And that works quite well, believe it or not, actually. We hear from the community when things aren't working out.
that's kind of one of my real concerns. I mean, over the years that I've been on the commission, that we have approved many conditional use permits, and I know what was approved, and I can go to those sites and see that they haven't kept up with the conditions on those permits, most notably with landscaping. And so we're going to be relying on this conditional use permit that we're issuing. But yet we can't really enforce it because we don't have the resources and the staff to do it. So then what we're relying on is someone to make a complaint or for someone to see that they're not in compliance with something. That's bothering, especially after all the comments that were made in the letters that were given to us from the people who were here and other people. I'll have to say that there are some comments there that I think are valid. Other comments I don't think are valid, and that most vehicles are going to be parked, they're going to be dilapidated there, that they're going to be leaking oil, things like that. I find it kind of odd. I was talking to my wife about this, that we have camping sites that we go to and RVs parked there all the time, and they're in very pristine areas that we love to enjoy and hike in, and but we don't mind a camper being there that might be leaking oil and doing other things while they're there. And so it's kind of for me, a conundrum. Anyway, thank you very much.
Jason.
Well, thank you, Steph. A very good job on the presentation. Appreciate it. And I know you put a lot of work into this, and I would just wanted to ask what the current status of the property is. I know it's a trailhead for the De Anza Trail. I know a lot of people use it. I don't know if it's official use or it's technically trespassing. So I just wanted to know, where does the De Anza Trail officially start? And is that anything in the works for Parks and Recreation to kind of mark that off so that, you know, my main concern is that at this point, people are going to be going there to start that trail. That's kind of the trailhead. There's going to be signs, and the trail is going to go along the highway. So you're going to have the highway and you're going to have a fence, and that's going to be the beginning of the trail, which is fine. What's on the horizon for the rest of the trail? Do you know?
Yeah, I can fill it in. This is one of many locations along the De Anza Trail that acts as an access point to the trail. This property isn't actually the trail. It isn't actually a portion of the trail, but it accesses the trail. The actual De Anza Trail really follows along a lot of the Salinas River corridor. South of this area, the trail disappears altogether because of the topography of the Salinas River. It becomes deeper and narrower. And so the De Anza Trail becomes part of the road. So you'd have to walk the road to connect the trail. But further north of here, there's actual pieces of trail, most of which is on the water company's property, and it has public easements through it for use. So the public can use it. And there's multiple other locations where they can park and access it. This is one of, I think, 6 or 7 access locations that within the city of Atascadero. But right now, today, if you park here, you're going to be walking across a vacant dirt lot, essentially, which is there now, which is a legal easement. The trail is barely discernible sometimes in the year because it's just kind of cutting through the middle of this site. And then it accesses kind of closer to the river and becomes more discernible and more of a logical trail. So I think this property's had multiple uses. So I think what we envision as staff in this particular project is that this trail would become more discernible. Its quality would be increased, at least on this site, and you would access the same trail on the, you know, closer to the Salinas River. But then the access point would have a nice kind of split rail fence. It would be landscaped. It wouldn't be just through the middle of a dirt vacant lot. So that's how staff envisions it in this scenario. But it would change, certainly. Is it changing something that's historically significant? Probably not, because the access is existing on top of reclaimed land that was filled with junk fill from other sites. Is it really a part of a historic De Anza Trail? It's certainly close to that alignment, but a lot of places, the roads have been built and buildings have been built right on top of it. Because like I said, south of this area, it disappears completely until you get quite a bit further south, and it picks up again near the city's water reclamation and wastewater treatment plant. There's another access point there that gets you out to another segment.
Okay, well, thank you. I really just wanted to reiterate that because California is so rich with history and there's been so much going on in this area over the centuries, that it's nice to have that part of Atascadero retained so that you can go there, you can see it, you can almost touch it, you can feel it, you can access that trail. And I'd like to see, I haven't ever walked it. And I've lived here quite a while, so it's encouraging me to get out there and see it. So I hope to see it before and after the project, hopefully if we approve it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Stan?
So one of our recommendations that was required in November is the visibility study. I think you all know where I'm headed with this. There was an issue, I believe, with the visibility study not actually being accessible within the last week, maybe two of today. I went out there myself last week and it was a very difficult Easter egg hunt to find any spray paint remains on the dirt. And I had talked to the general manager, John O'Neill, about it. And he said, well, last I heard, there were some folks that he couldn't name, really couldn't name, that were out there recreating, I believe he said with motorized car things, but he thinks the stakes got removed and they just were in the way. So, to the most of his knowledge, he's not sure when exactly they got removed, but they definitely weren't there when I went out to do the visibility study within the last week of the project. So I'm a little perturbed, but there was no real identification that I could do when I went out there based on our November discussions with the Planning Commission. So I want that recorded. I think that was a condition that I was expecting to be able to go out and see, take the time, drag my family out there because we wanted to recreate and try to stack functions. And then I'm kind of going on a wild goose chase. So that's more of like I guess a report. And then maybe if you had something to comment on with that.
Please, let me comment on that.
Sure,
Because we did get photographs of the stakes being installed.
sure.
They were immediately stolen and wiped away.
Okay.
So there were folks out there
I
that
saw-
did not want those to be there. And so they took them all away. And this happens very commonly when we mark sites, especially in an area like that, that's remote and there's no eyes upon it. So that's what happened. We did ask the applicant to go back out and restake. They did that and to have it more bright and more colorful so we could actually see that. And they did that. So my apologies if you went out in the in-between time because the stakes were up. We got pictures of them. The stakes were immediately taken away beyond our control. So unfortunately, that's what happened in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we could do that would not be taken away would be to park a trailer there and then go on the 41 and look and put 2 trailers out, That's,
Yeah,
yeah. that's what happened.
that's an interesting idea.
With the AMWC's approval, of course, because it's their
Yeah,
land.
that's an
And it was
interesting idea.
actually the general manager's idea. So that was something I talked to him about on the phone today was, okay, well, how can we make that visible? So at very best, if we were going to move this project forward, I would like to see that. Because I just think that it's not 5, it's not 20, it's not 50 RVs. We're talking over 200 parked right there, right by the river, as you're coming into a corridor of Atascadero. So I think that for me is the biggest missing piece if I'm going to at all look at this project for approval. And-
If I could just interject and remind the planning commission that we haven't entered the public hearing portion, so you should limit your comments to questions of staff,
Sure.
not actual comments.
Yeah, that
Thank
was, sorry, Chair. It was mostly a question that is very much needed to get an answer to determine anything. Yeah, and then I wanted to know, Mariah, on your presentation, which was very thorough, thank you. I think the floodplain years, you were talking about 1969, 1972. I wrote those down. I'm not sure where they were in the presentation. Those were years that the site itself was flooded.
Yeah, let me go back to the report. I apologize that it was.
That's okay. Yeah, I just wrote them
unclear.
down from what was on the screen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it in the packet necessarily, but I was like, oh, okay, those are some
Mhm.
easier numbers.
Okay, so I'm reading the report here. The entire parcel was flooded and scoured in the 1969 and 1972 floods. In 1969, hundreds of residents had to be evacuated. In the aftermath of these floods, the levee was constructed.
Yeah, and then nothing after 1972, I imagine. I wasn't born in 1983, but I know that there was a big flood that year. And yeah, I'm just curious about that.
After,
the- Sorry.
I was just gonna say the levee was constructed and then San Luis Obispo County leased the area until the 1990s. And this was the time where the county and Caltrans used the area for disposal of excess materials, asphalt, concrete, all those things.
So the big levee and the berm that's there now has stopped future flooding events. That's why they built that whole area up. And if you look over the top of that and look in the river, you can see these concrete remnants and junk that was dumped in our Salinas River. That's what we did back before we had good environmental laws and good planning review and before Tascadero was a city. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, the inhibit archaeological.
But yeah, and so there's probably archaeology buried many, many, many feet down there and former habitat and everything else. But that's often what happens. with some of these properties.
Well, Chair, you're on my shoulder here. My last question, I think for now, is that has there been other projects that have piqued the city's interest to be able to talk to AMWC about that would potentially mean better revenue for the city?
Industrial land is an extreme shortage in the city of Atascadero. Most of the industrial land that's vacant in the city is owned by Atascadero Mutual Water Company. They do need reserve land for their operations. We have engaged that conversation lightly over the years. They have motioned that they're not interested in permanent land uses on their sites, but land uses more along these lines where at some point, should they have the option or need to use the property for other things that they can, and it wouldn't mean the construction or demolition of major structures, but certainly that would be of interest to the city if these lands were available for industrial land uses that support head of household jobs, light industry, and things that can work with both the aesthetics, the environment, and the economy. It's desperately what we need. We have some of this land over by Via and Traffic Way that's vacant now, but it's just, it's the ownership is not desiring to have these properties move forward with anything. So yeah, this is definitely an opportunity site. And so it's going to be a big consideration for the general plan update. And I think a lot of the community is going to weigh in about what it should or shouldn't be for the future. But I think you touch on a very, very good topic. That's very important. And does this land use stop that from happening? I don't know that it does. But is this the highest and best use of the property? Absolutely not. But is it consistent with the industrial zoning district? It's a conditionally allowed use. Yes, it is. So does it produce head of household jobs and tax revenue for the city? No. So
Pipe rail fence. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mariah, can you put the map back up of the whole parcel and the parcel that they're going to be using, please?
Yes.
Yep, that was it. Perfect. Okay. So the little walking trails that you can kind of see, that's sort of what they're using as the Deonza Trail now currently.
Correct. Yeah, primarily the one that you see kind of that runs parallel to that yellow line there.
Okay. Is there another way to get, I'm not phrasing this right. If this project doesn't happen, what are the chances that the Deonza Trail gets the facelift that is proposed with this?
Nothing will happen with the Deonza Trail entrance if this project doesn't happen unless another project comes along that enables us to put a condition on it to do some improvements to this, unless the water company wants to proactively do it, or unless there's a volunteer effort to do it. But the city currently doesn't have any provisions, financing, or plans to improve that access to the Deonza Trail.
So there's an easement through this property now for this trail, the way it's, okay.
Yes.
I think that's all. I'm gonna marinate on that.
I had a question. Can you go to the landscape plan, please? Some of the comments that we received were regarding visibility from Highway 41. And yes, right there, that's what I want to see. It's hard to see from this view that we have here, but I see some trees there. Are they a specific box size, or what are they? And how big will they be at maturity? And will they, I'm interested in what kind of screening they will provide for the site as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are larger trees. Let's see. Maybe the applicant can elaborate on that, or I can look at a bigger. Fortunately, it printed really blurry, but.
How about during public comment, can I find that for you?
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up a public hearing and invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come and address us at this time. Please state your name for the record.
Name is Don McAdam. I'm here representing the,
Is the
I
mic
think the microphone's on. If you could just speak right into it, that would be
Okay.
great.
is that better? Okay, here representing the fellow who wants to put the site in, of course. And like myself, he's a longtime local business owner. He learned the business from his dad. I do design build. He does boat repair and sales. He has a local shop here that he's taking care of, many of the folks around. He's constantly asked by people, can you store a boat for me? So he saw a need a few years ago for a storage site and began looking for one. Found John Neal at the Mutual Water Company and said, yeah, we've got this land we'd like to lease out, rather than have it vacant. And so in conjunction with the development he wants to do, he's, proposing the landscaping improvements and the Deonza Trail improvements, that you'd like to see. I'm glad you asked about the marking and the flagging, because I'm the guy who went out there on a Saturday and did about half of them and talked to Phil Dunsmore on Monday and said, hey, I just want to make sure this is what you had in mind. And he said, well, if they're just spray painted, I'd rather see them with flags on them so they're more visible. So I went out the last Wednesday and all my stakes were gone, but one apparently was driven in too hard and they couldn't pull it out. So Wednesday I went out, restaked it, flagged it. I drove through yesterday and everything was gone again. So twice everything's disappeared. So I'll try to be brief because I imagine there's some opposition here and they want to be heard. We're trying to work with what this land is zoned for. If it's inappropriate, it should be zoned differently, I suppose, or they shouldn't be looking to lease it for this use. the reason it's in two phases is he's had a lot of requests for people that want to store boats and RVs, but he's not sure that he's going to fill it completely. So he'd rather build it in phases, do the first phase, see how full it is before he goes ahead and commits to developing the rest. That's the reason for breaking it into two parts. Obviously, coming back a second time to go through all this again would be pretty time consuming. And if it's zoned for it, if it's a land use that's appropriate, he'd like to just get the whole plan in place at once and then move ahead as demand comes to him. Any questions or?
So one of the questions I had was regarding the landscape plan and the trees. Are you aware of what kind of trees were picked for around the detention basin?
Unfortunately, I didn't memorize the list. I know that given the height of 41 above the site, even 30-foot tall trees aren't going to block all the possible RVs.
Right.
I think the reason that they went for the maximum density that the surveyor and planner did was so he could accommodate all the people that want to have a place to put these things. You know, nobody wants them in their HOA or their backyard. You know, they want them not on the street, not in their development. Here's an industrial zone that would be ideal for them on the one hand. On the other hand, apparently it's destroying a wide open trail.
Any questions? Randy, go ahead.
Just want to make sure that I interpreted what you said correctly. So the applicant intends to do things in two phases. So if the first phase goes through and the applicant isn't able to fill the storage needs, then most likely the second doesn't look like it'll be developed, or is there any alternative thought on what it would be?
As far as I know, the second phase would not be developed if the first phase doesn't fill up.
Okay, and it looks like, I mean, kind of like we're trying to compensate for the trail, trying to make things beautiful here. So the reason I asked is like, if we were to, go through with this, I would hate to see like the first half, be like, there's a trail. And then all of a sudden the easement doesn't line up on the second half. So I was just wondering, is there a follow through to make sure that, the commitment to the trail would be done?
Yeah, the trail is tied to the first phase.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
all
so
done. in the first
that's
phase.
all one same.
Okay. All right, thank you for the clarification.
Thanks.
Okay, we will open it up to the general public. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address us. Anybody from the public that would like to address us? Yes, please. And if you could speak directly into the microphone.
So I wrote a letter, but I don't know, I sent it in,
Can you
but
say your
I
name?
get a feeling you didn't receive it. So my name is Kate Montgomery. Did you get that in the packet?
We
you did.
received several emails.
Okay, so
Recently.
I guess it did come. Okay. Then I don't need to read it? Well,
Right.
Here I am, so I'm gonna. Good practice for me. So my name is Kate Montgomery. I live in Atascadero. I've been here for 40+ years. To the Planning Commission, I'm writing to request that you deny the proposed RV parking facility on a floodplain of riverfront property. Atascadero is in a beautiful natural setting in urban forest with large native oaks, Atascadero Creek running through, Pine Mountain visible from many angles, and bordered by the Salinas River to the east and north. Founder E.G. Lewis put a lot of care and planning into the land's natural features, for example, with roads that respect the lay of the land and by enlarging a wetland area into Atascadero Lake and requiring creek setbacks. So let's maintain this kind of planning vision and protect our land and water and wildlife especially at such a unique location as this proposed RV parking area, which is on the floodplain created by the confluence of the Salinas River and its main tributary, Atascadero Creek. The large berms and boulders placed to protect this floodplain remained intact in the rains of last winter. But as winter storms become more severe, it's likely a matter of time until these berms are breached. This project will be messy and short-lived at best, I believe. Atascadero's general planned update describes the Salinas River as a key natural resource that should be protected. All polluting activities, vehicular included, should be illegal, and the riverbed should be recognized as a wildlife corridor. Let's be careful to establish the eastern gateway to the city of Atascadero as a beautiful, natural, and inviting area enjoyed by both tourists and local people, inhabited by native plants and animals, supported by clean and healthy water of the Salinas River. Again, I ask, please don't allow this riverbed land to be used for vehicle parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Audrey Taub, and I did submit comments, so I just wanted to add another, if that's okay, really short. If you wouldn't mind putting up the aerial view, I just want to point out, I actually spend a lot of time in the river. And so I want you to know the neighborhood here. And speaking to Phil, you mentioned like the city works well, that people come with complaints. But I really would love to see, I would like to share some celebrations. If you look where that 6-acre line is pointing, and you follow that up to the blue line, there's a sycamore tree right at that point. In that sycamore tree is a bald eagle nest. In the morning, every morning, between 6 and 7 a.m., you'll see 2 bald eagles in that tree. Oftentimes, they're coming down to the Salinas River and feasting. What a treasure we have. There's often water in that area because there are beavers holding the water and allowing it to sink in. When you see water in the ground on the Salinas, that's our groundwater. That's our water table. There's that much water that it's visible. What a treasure we have. So I just want to point out, I don't want to come here in 6 months and say, Phil, look at what happened. Look at this mess that happened. I'd much rather action happen because of what we have to celebrate. We have a lot to celebrate in the city. I also want to invite whomever. We're giving a walk to see the wetlands tomorrow, 6 p.m. I can share with you, we meet at the Atascadero sewage treatment plant at the entrance there at 6. It's a 6 to 8, and you'll get to see this wetland as it's being rebuilt by the beavers. And I just highly encourage you to get to know these real treasures in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Frank. I have lived here a while. As a matter of fact, I was born here. And I have concerns about this proposal because I think your commission should give a lot of consideration to the fact that this is being proposed in a floodplain. And so anything you do in a floodplain, you can expect to be flooded. And so I think
there's another issue that might arise. I think that this will not fill up 100% right away. There will be a lot of areas that are open space. And I would be concerned as a former fireman, I'd be concerned about the fire risk there because I could see, vehicles sitting around, not necessarily like your diagram says, they're going to be kind of random in there, and there'll be a lot of potential for vegetation to grow. That means you're probably going to have to use herbicide. Herbicide is right next to the river. And so there's a lot of issues here, I think, that should be considered. Personally, I think it's not the best option. There's going to be a little better opportunity to use this property. It's a unique property right next to the river. And I think we should be very careful about we use it. I hope you give a lot of consideration to the impacts of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Reynolds, and if you could put the slide up of the front view. Area. Wife and I walk this road a lot. One of our walks goes down Burberell, Sycamore, and that road is very. So this road is like, especially this one, the picture on the left is going to be maintenance as a result of it. Now, the road's falling out, moving off. So the city is spending upkeep on this road. 282 vehicles. And as it is right now, it's a very down, especially when Acacia goes in, when cars go by, right back up against this so the traffic will go by. So I think scrap is definitely signal. That's all.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make any comments? Okay, then we will go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting, public hearing, and bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion and deliberation. I'd like to just say that I did go out to the site today, and I think maybe because I'm an engineer and I have I can usually find things. So I actually found all the paint on the ground. Thank you for painting the ground. The stakes were all gone except for the ones on the other side of the fence in the phase 2 area. But thankfully I was able to actually find that. So thank you for doing that. And the first thought that came to my head was there's been some kids out here pulling these rods out of the ground. So being around construction, I understand that happens quite often. One of the things that was a common theme of a lot of the emails that we received was protecting our entrance into the city from the easterly end. I completely understand where they're coming from, although when I was driving it, your eye is actually drawn to the other side of when you're coming westbound, it's actually drawn to the other side of the road where the water company facilities are. I actually had to crane my neck to actually look the other way, and also coming eastbound, the road's curving, so you're not even seeing that. So that although I do understand the view sheds, it didn't seem to be considerate, it didn't seem that it was that big of a deal because mostly your eye was drawn to in a different direction while you're driving. That was just one of the comments I had regarding that. Any comments from any of the outside planning commissioners? Dennis,
Can I ask a question of staff, please?
go ahead.
Thank you. Was there any analysis done in terms of the gentleman's question about trips on being created by this? I used to work off of Buckley Road in Vachel, and there's a site there, people parked, and I worked there 30 years, and I can say that maybe I saw two cars driving out of that facility in 30 years. Is there any type of information that says that here's the activity that's usually generated by a facility like this?
We did evaluate other facilities like this. And I've never, it's extremely low. This is one of the lowest land uses. So we did not require a trip analysis because the numbers are so low. They're completely off the chart. So that's not even a consideration in terms of trips. You might get someone coming in here. I mean, for their own RV, they're probably going to come to it, several times a year. And if you multiply that and you start looking at the numbers, you might have one or two pulling in and out per day. I think a single family home would probably have more. One single family home would probably have more trips than this storage facility. As our assumption, it could be different on a holiday. People are coming in and out and doing things, but the volume is low compared to the land uses that we expect out here under the current general plan, under the industrial zoning. For example, if I had to assume a manufacturing site out here with 100 employees and lunch breaks and shipping and receiving and all the things that we normally see at a manufacturing zone, the trips would be several hundred more than that. We'd probably see, 500 trips a day. And that's what we expect with our general plan. When we created our general plan in 2002, and we did an environmental impact report for that, that was the assumption for this particular site. And so that's what the road classification is designed to handle. So this is far lower than what we've already got in forecast for this zone.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, thank you.
Sort of on that train, there's no access to Sycamore off 41 though. So in order for these RVs to get to this location, they would have to go sort of through residential areas, kind of around to get there, right?
There's two routes. Yes, they could come, from the north and go, under the railroad trestle, or they could come from the end of Kerberville to Sycamore, which is the former Highway 41 before they demolished the bridge over the river.
So are there any clearance issues with either with the railroad trestle? Because I know it's like a dip when you
That's
go
a little
that
bit of
way.
a sharp curve and a dip. If I was hauling an RV, I would take the Kerberville route. But the good thing is they have two options. It depends what size vehicle they're towing, but both can navigate an RV and trailer.
Okay. And then, so for the notice for this project, how far did it go out? Or did it not go out? Are they too far away? Those residentials on Kerber.
So for the noticing, we went with the required noticing, which is 300 feet from the project boundaries. So anyone within 300 feet of the 23-acre parcel would have been
Oh,
notified.
okay.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Kind of have a few things. So this is discussion time, correct?
Yep.
Between us, because we get the time to do this because we can't legally outside of this building. So this is some time. And while I understand the public comment that was made by the gentleman with the boatyard and the boats, and I think the comment that I heard loud and clear was this property is zoned industrial. So it meets the standards, and our staff, Mr. Dunsmore stated that too. Is this legally within the requirements? Yes, it is. And yet we have a planning commission filled with humans that are here. And we have a 2045 general plan update that we're currently doing. That is months away from being done, not even years, at the end of this year. So I understand that we could make this project happen, and we have the power to do so tonight. I also think it's out of our scope on a bigger than legal viewpoint to have just these folks with microphones make that decision tonight on if this is the most appropriate use. That'll be in perpetuity, and it won't be a 10-year. We can make it that, but anything that's impacted on the site, the Atascadero Mutual Water Company will inherit, and they can rip everything out, but are they going to? I mean, probably not. They're going to leave pipe rail fencing and cement concrete pads and lighting and whatnots. I did talk to the general manager, like I said earlier today, and he, John had said that they tried to pump and they tried to see if there was viable water to expand the wells down here. And he said, geologically, it's not viable. So that was an important piece of information that I needed to hear, I think. And nobody asked that, but I wanted to share with the commission. I had asked him about any other uses that were industrial that could promote cost savings for shareholders as a citizen of Atascadero, because beyond, something that I would love to see as a citizen like ecotourism, it is industrial and it's not open space, even though it's right next to a sliver of open space that backs up against our artery, of our whole watershed all the way to Monterey. So, I did ask about that, and he said, well, solar's been talked about, and we're going to go ahead and put them in on our buildings instead, because the solar shed over there, it's been looked at, and this just isn't, going to pan out compared to just installing them on our buildings. So he didn't want to expand that. And I mean, what I surmised from the conversation was that this is a passive way to lease property, get minimal earnings. He did not have to disclose, nor did he disclose how much they would be getting from the lease agreement, or profit, because it's not profit from the business. They're leasing the land to the business owner. So they wouldn't be receiving profit to dump into admin costs or potential water use costs. Our water use rates are going to go up no matter if this project is going to happen or not. We all know that because we have to expand the water treatment plant for our community. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think that this is a minimal use. It's very passive. And I think at best what it's going to do is possibly detract from the bleeding problem we have of homelessness. And it's not going to fix anything to do with that. That's what I think as a community benefit it could possibly do. I heard the HOA comment and just mitigating the issue of blighted, RVs in people's front yards. Not as empathetic to that. I understand that it's an issue though. There was one more thing I was looking at, and I brought this up in November. Let's see, I'm trying to find it. The Salinas River Trail, it's a conceptual master plan that was developed by SLOCOG and multiple cities and agencies, including our city here. February 2014 was when it was developed. And I mean, it is far not reachable at this point. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved in making tons of municipalities work in order to have a congruent Salinas River Trail. I see that as a huge emergent opportunity, and it's not like it's just been a passive conversation. It's been developed inside of a plan for the corridor and the Anza Trail. So I see that this is if I'm not personally interested in denying this project, I would like to see it, I think, tabled until after we've looked at what is the bigger vision for our community, knowing that the Salinas River is right there and the significance of it and emergent opportunities. I definitely, I think that it's bigger than this council or legal requirements being met here. So I think I'm done with my discussion.
Discussion. Jason.
Real quick, I thank you to our Victoria. appreciate what you said. It brings a lot of thought to this project because I'm one of those people who doesn't like to make my personal viewpoint any part of this this decision making. So I try to keep my personal viewpoint out of it. This is purely a community decision, a community type of decision, what's best for the community and what's best for the applicant. And we try to merge those two because we don't want to be standing on top of each other. I believe that the project is great. I mean, I think it's great to have people be able to store their toys, right? You know, they have them, they want to store them. And it is a first world problem to not have a place to store your RV, which is fantastic. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to have RVs. However, this area is limited, and as Phil said, it's unique. We don't get a riverfront property back. Once it's developed, it tends to stay developed. And I hate to see this property with history and so much potential go away and not have future plans to have it be preserved for future generations. So with that in mind, I would like to ask the remaining members to give me their thoughts on what they believe would be the best course forward in this particular instance. Should we wait to see if we can put together a plan for this area? Should we go ahead and approve it with some limitations on it, as Phil had said? I'm looking for some additional conversation on this.
Maybe we can have staff weigh in on this. There's been a couple of thoughts brought up, and one is the general plan. We're doing the general plan update. Has there been any discussion at that level, or has the city council even considered rezoning of this area?
We haven't gotten there yet. Right now, we're completing our existing conditions reports. We're going to start talking about broad alternatives. If anything, we're looking to expand where we might have available industrial uses. Will that be along the river? I don't know. But these are really good questions for our general plan update. And I think we will be evaluating what is the best land use for this area. We can't control what a private property owner wants to do with their property, but we can control what the available land uses are. And we will be making these decisions over the next 6 to 8 months. Our general plan, our kind of base document and our base alternatives will be done within that time frame. The actual general plan won't be ready for approval until probably at least this time next year, though, however, because it still has to go through a CEQA process, an EIR process, multiple public outreach opportunities, multiple hearings. So even though we may have some initial analysis in the document done this year, it's going to be some additional time. But these could be good questions to pose as part of that if the commission feels uneasy about approving this land use, because once you do, it is a long-term land use, and these things will be there for the rest of our career, most likely. And you want to suggest looking at this site for alternative land uses, and that's your prerogative. You can do that. And you can make those findings to essentially, continue this indefinitely until the completion of the general plan update. It's a logical conclusion. It's not consistent with what staff's recommending tonight, because we're finding, that we can condition this project to work as well. And so as staff, we're trying to remain neutral in these situations. We're not going to give you, the best idea. And I think you're having great discussion. I would continue that discussion. And there's several other commissioners who have not deliberated yet. And I think you might come to a logical conclusion after everyone weighs in and asks the remaining questions that they have on this topic.
Thank you.
This project, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This project kind of reminds me of the mini storage project we had, where it's zoned for conditional use. But when you look at it, you're like, it doesn't really bring anything, like it doesn't enhance our city. It doesn't bring in income. It doesn't bring in jobs. It doesn't really enhance our city. And then, you know, add the fact that it's right next to the river, that the Deonza Trail is there. And I fully appreciate the upgrades that we've attached to the Deonza Trail to this. I think that's great. It kind of reminds me of the Bob Jones Trail and how, you know, a lot of that was improved and developed through use and other easements and things. And so that's great. I didn't even know it existed before this project. But, you know, to Victoria's point where, you know, thinking of the future, like once we say, sure, you can do this, that's what it is for probably my lifetime. And I don't know that I'm, without like getting touchy-feely, I don't know that that's the thing I want to approve for that land use when it could change, but it also couldn't change. And so there's pluses and minuses, but I like a couple of things I've heard. One, that we approve phase 1 with the trail improvement, and then he has to come back for phase 2. You know, I think that's a decent compromise. But on the other hand, again, if we approve this, you know, what precedent does that send for the rest of the land, and other industrial use? And then, you know, it is what it is at that point. So, that's kind of my thoughts on this. I know that wasn't conclusive.
And Chair, if I could just weigh in briefly and just remind the commission, you probably all know this already, but what does it mean when something's conditional? Does it mean that the city has to approve it if they can meet all the findings and we have all logical conditions? No. The conditional use is a maybe. We have complete discretion. The commission has complete discretion. The city council has complete discretion on whether this land use is suitable. Even if they make all the findings, you can still say, well, we don't think it's compatible with this site. Well, it's really one of the findings. I mean, I guess you'd have to say one of the findings we can't make, but it's pretty easy to make findings either way in this case. So don't feel compelled that you have to say we have to approve this because it's consistent with the overall land use plan or it's consistent with the neighborhood. It might as well be found inconsistent. So these are land uses are put in conditional categories because they're marginal, because sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Just keep that in mind.
And the action, if we took an action to not approve it tonight, it is still appealable to the council, right?
Within 14 days, calendar days, it would be appealable to the city council. Unless you, I mean, I'm just thinking about this out loud. If you continued it to a date uncertain or just continued it till after, well, I guess that action could still technically be appealed. So, yeah. So, yeah, if you wanted to continue it for the general plan, I would say at that point, the commission should instead motion to deny with a recommendation to analyze this site with the general plan update, or approve it, you know, with conditions to modify, or approve it as is. Those are your kind of options that are on the table. But any of those things are appealable either way. And for example, if you did approve it and the community wasn't happy, the community members could also appeal this within 14 days to the city council.
Dennis, did you have comments you want to make?
Yeah. Is the water very much. And they have been great caretakers of the needs of Atascadero for a very, very long time. John Neal is a excellent resource to talk to and is very knowledgeable, and they have records that go way back. I think the idea of looking at this property at the during the general plan, although it might be a good idea and conceptually, but with the knowledge that we have as a commission and with the knowledge we have as individuals, do we actually think that the discussion that we're having today about the property would change if this property was used for head of household jobs and there'd be a manufacturing plant there somehow, and there'd be 500 trips on Sycamore Road because people are driving there for their jobs every day? To me, that ball would be much bigger at that point. We also know from John Neal and comments that were made that they are interested in not having the property developed to a certain level because they might need it for other reasons. And again, they have a board of trustees and they have John, and we live in an interesting community in the fact that we have the Mutual Water Company, which is separate from the city completely. And when you tell people that, they're just shocked that we live in such a situation. If we're looking for the long-term best use of the land, I think that this particular use, despite some of its problems that we've identified, is the most benign that we could have at this time. And at the same time, also meet the water company's need. I mean, I don't know what type of lease they are forming with the applicant, whether it's a 5-year or 10-year, or how long lease is going to be, but maybe after 5 or 10 years, they're going to say, we want it back. I think a lot of concern that we've expressed is some of the problems that might be developed by this project. I believe we could, as a commission, add a remediation component to the project, that if the lease is ended, that the property has to be remediated back to a point. Could we not do that? Mr. Director, please.
I think I missed the last couple of words. You said that the lease ended,
If the lease ended, could we add a condition that the property needs to be remediated?
You mean return to its
define
current state?
define remediation. What should
Back to-
remediation to me reads
Remediated back to what it is today.
restored back to its existing condition.
Yeah, or today's condition, which would be, we're talking about gravel roads, those would be gone. The light posts, all that stuff would have to be removed. If that's a concern, we don't want to ruin the.
That is a
property.
logical condition that you could put upon this, upon cease of the use, that the land is restored to its condition of today.
Is even the applicant doesn't know if the property is going to do what they hopefully want to happen, which is being occupied for a long period of time. Again, the lease, whether it happens, they have 2 phases because they're not sure whether it will or not. There's a lot of factors that we run into as a society where we think that things are going to happen. And our dreams sometimes have to change because of circumstances. So for me, I think that this is a good short-term program for this property based on what the water company is going to envision to do.
Victoria, did you have additional comments?
Okay, I want to address the commission, but I want to address Dennis. Like to respond to some things. Well, I mean, for one, I don't think that the general manager and the applicant would want to return it to its original condition. For example, the trail improvements, the possible landscaping we talked about, even though it's gonna be landscape, we know what was originally stated. It may or may not succeed and, appreciate and all that and survive. And then, he wants to put in pipe railing rather than split railing. He had stated because it will last over time. So they'll want to keep that, so there's things. I don't think that we need to put that as a condition. I think they already have that opportunity to make them, tear it off when lease is done or keep it, and just keep it as an asset to the property. So I don't know. It seems like a moot point there. And, on a philosophical perspective too, listening to an elder talk about how, well, do you want this minimal industrial ball to land near the river? Or do you want a giant industrial ball to land into the river? That's kind of what I just heard. And looking at it right now, we don't have speaking of balls, we don't have a crystal ball that says, well, if we deny this, we will get a giant, head of household industrial opportunity. And we're not going to necessarily be, and probably won't be, this commission as it stands for the next project that might come in. So although we can deny it now, we just don't know the future of industrial projects. I think that's what you were saying. So might as well take this one and keep it away from future bigger industrial problems. I just see that even though it's going to be looking at the riverbed and the access that humans have, that's possibly okay. But then looking at the appreciation that some of the public comments talked about, the bald eagle nest, the actual inhabitants there on a daily basis, we're not going to be there as much as they're there every single day. And so, yeah, sure, we might not be as impacted and, we get a fancy trail to walk through. But then there's all of that open space, which is just a noodle compared to everything else right around it. And yet it impacts it, I think, greatly. And I might just be a young, hopeful individual, but I do think that's why I was put on the planning commission, is to think logically about future uses and what could happen. And I would recommend that we deny with a look at this site for the 2045 general plan and rezoning.
Just to respond, what I was referring to is the environmental constraints. We know what those are. And although we might, within the general plan, say, okay, we want this type of activity there, those environmental constraints are going to exist. The ones that we have today are going to exist in the future. And I'm very knowledgeable of CEQA. And my knowledge would be is that the outcry that we have right now is going to be tenfold in the future if we propose something else. And that's where I'm saying that this is the most benign and most helpful for the water company at this time. I don't think that there's going to be some massive project going to be proposed there and approved and built ever. Thank you.
Can I ask a question,
Randy.
staff? So Phil, you directly alluded earlier, like if you had, a large trailer, you wouldn't want to go underneath, the railroad there, correct? So have we ever looked at how the traffic could be affected in that pinch point? Because it's pretty narrow there. And I know that if you're going through, even with like a bigger size truck now, if you're like going on the other side, it's like, okay, I'm probably going to stop right now because we're both going to get stuck. Has there been any study to look into how that area is going to be affected?
No.
And the reason I
It's
asked
the
this-
retaining wall that makes that constraint. It's that big retaining wall that juts out. It's
Yeah.
always an awkward turning movement through there.
And the reason I ask this is, for what I do for a living, this is my coverage area. I've serviced a lot of these areas. And so I understand that you have a neighborhood where you can either go right at the front edge of the water department to go to the frontage road, or you pretty much have a one-way entrance to a neighborhood that's a circle, right? And it goes all out through that same exit. So you probably got 100 houses of people that are going to have to come and go through that one area. the reason I ask about the traffic study is I don't know what way, if there's a, like, generally with trailers, when you're pulling larger loads, there is the preferred way of, okay, I can cut this turn entering in the property this way. And I didn't know if this was considered. I know that it's a little bit off the beaten path. And I do believe those houses in that residential community, they're probably outside the 300 feet of the property. The requirement that was.
They're outside of that notification, so, yeah.
Okay, so that is a concern that I do have, but overall on this, there are some things I would like to just address that I've kind of heard being floated back and forth. I do know that, we brought up, a previous thing as far as a mini storage where there were some commonalities in it, right? And that leads us as commissioners to go, okay, in that circumstance, what was the land use and the amount of public involvement that was there and how much presence was made? It was like, that was one of the things that really showed, okay, this is the way the public views this as how it's being used. And in this situation, it's kind of interesting because, I look at that and I go, dang, I'm like the representative for the applicant. He does nail it on the head when he goes, all right, this is, where the letter of the law is. And it's a hard part to separate my personal feelings on the topic from what I feel is logic. Because when I took this position, it was essentially to uphold, letter of the law, what we know. And I do think it's a very slippery slope that whenever a person, if we commit an action where there is a lack of knowledge and we do it off of what our assumption is, that is essentially a bias in effect. And my law classes have taught me that that's something that I'm very well versed in. So what I'm seeing kind of bounce back and forth is we're really having this circular, like, this could be worse. We could have like an industrial plant that can be 10,000 times worse, right? We can't assume that. And I'm kind of at a little bit of a loss here because I don't see like, I think Dennis brought up probably one of the most valid points as far as like, okay, is there a way to make them go back on the second phase of this? I think that's the only part that I really see logical because it allows us a breakaway point of we can see on the first and be like, that didn't work. And it gives us a little bit of leverage. So I just wanted to kind of offer that perspective. And I do kind of wonder, and Phil, you may be able to fill me in on this. I mean, how much currently with the property, with how it is right now, is the public benefiting from it? I mean, as far as how it is fenced in, and I mean, how free is the actual access to this trail, and how many people are really using it? Do we have any actual idea on that?
We don't have those numbers, no. But like I said, this is one of many access points and we don't know generally how many people use it. It does get used. It's obvious that there's a worn path through here. There's foot traffic. People use this site as the airstrip, for their model aircraft and for other recreational things on it as well. So it's, I usually see one or two people out here at a time when I've been out there.
So part of the reason I'm kind of asking this is, I mean, you mentioned earlier that a lot of the industrial areas were held by the water company, right? And right now, we are also setting the precedent of how we're going to work with them. So like, if there is in the future of the general plan, the concept to try to expand that, I mean, they're still holding all the cards of that territory that's covered. So that's kind of what I'm trying to keep in mind with whatever we choose to do here. So so that's my thoughts currently right now, and hopefully that's added a little bit of clarity on some parts of the discussion.
Phil, I have a question for you. There were several comments about this being in the floodplain, and historically it was. However, is it currently? Have the FEMA maps been updated? Because if this is 10 feet of fill in there with the levee, it seems like it would no longer be in the floodplain.
I'm going to try and bring up our FEMA flood maps in our GIS system while we're talking, unless, Mariah, do you have any information on that at all?
No, I don't have any information directly on that. I mean, we worked with our public works department and they didn't have any further recommendations. I think that the levee has really helped prevent the flooding, but I don't know if it's fully taken.
Let me see how
out of
it's,
that.
yeah, I can probably pull this up right now and see how it's mapped, and I can let you know But it
Is-
is,
I
I
think
mean,
that-
it feels like it's, when you walk across the site and you walk down to the river, it's a substantial drop. And
Yes.
it didn't, we had some pretty substantial flooding this year. The Salinas River was within its flood stage multiple times this year. And the Salinas Reservoir overflowed for a long period of time. And this property did not flood, whereas, properties in Paso did flood. It came over several bridges. It breached its banks in a lot of locations. So, but let's check. I can pull up the map right now and I can tell you where this particular site lies on the current map. And I'm pretty sure that the map's been updated since this property was graded because it happened such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm curious myself on that.
For my opinion, if you look at the site, it is certainly not any kind of riparian vegetation out there. I mean, it's
Very dry.
it's dry and dead, basically. And as soon as you go over the berm, it's a beautiful, lush river riparian area, but in this area, it is not.
It is a good question, though, that you brought up. If you're looking at just the actual paper, we have an industrial zone and then we have a floodplain industrial zone. So what trumps what here, even though we think, oh, it'll never flood. It will always be industrial. Like, are these things that we're working off of right now? And which one is going to be more permanent? That's my question.
Well, and I actually work on these kinds of projects all the time and helping the city of King City actually with our golf course in the restoration of the golf course because they got flooded out this year and working with FEMA on that and using the maps. And makes a big difference, where you can put a building, whether or not it's in the floodway, the flood zone. And so if this is out of the FEMA map area, then, an allowed use would be to put some kind of industrial buildings if it was actually in the flood zone. It would be a lot harder to get that even approved by FEMA or any other regulatory bodies. Did you have a comment? Right, see your finger on the button.
I guess I go back to like a couple of things. One, it's conditional. We don't have to approve it. And it's not like, I guess lots of people have been asking about storage, but again, this doesn't necessarily enhance the city. And the other thing is that I keep thinking about like approval versus if we approve it, we don't really know how it will affect the environment, the animals, the bald eagles, the beavers. If we deny it, obviously it won't affect those residents, but it will affect the lessor and the mutual water company, which is all of us, which is also the people who are here saying they don't want this, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why that's why I'm fidgeting with my button, is because I'm thinking of all those things.
Well, I just have the question I have to beg is, how much is this going to affect the citizen and the shareholder? And that's why I got on the phone today with the general manager. He couldn't state the exact numbers to me, but it is severely benign, in my opinion. We are going to see rates increase regardless of this project. So this is not going to benefit us in that way. It's a purely HOA blighted property, in my opinion, that some neighborhoods are going to benefit from. That is literally the only thing I can think of.
And it's sort of telling that we just went from like a low income thing and now we're talking about people storing their boats and RVs. And so it's like a dichotomy of the citizens of our city and what they need, and that we have to take into account the needs of all those different people. But I guess I'm ready to make a motion if there's no further comment.
Please.
Okay. I move to deny the resolution for the Sycamore RV storage pending a review of this property with a general plan. As Phil stated, I hope I covered all the things on that.
That makes sense, Phil.
I believe you have to state the finding that you cannot make in order.
Do I have to state the finding, Phil?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. We
can-
have to
Um,
put the finding into a
can-
resolution.
Yeah, I would say that it is,
You can use any of these findings in the inverse. They would be the same.
okay. Inconsistent, yeah, it's inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood or contrary to its orderly development. Do I have to be more specific than that? Number 4.
Can you further explain why it's inconsistent? Sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
I can help you out there. Like you chose number 4.
yes,
Friends finding for your motion. Proposed project or use will be inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood or contrary to its orderly development. No, I'm just kind of saying you need to say because.
oh, gotcha,
So
okay.
because.
So the
that's all I'm
proposed
gonna say.
project will be inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood or contrary to its orderly development because of its its location near the Salinas River and the industrial uses that like are, let me try and do this in my own words here. Sorry.
Take your time. Your other commissioners can help you out later. You can leave that open-ended and go and keep going, for a second and they can dial it in. See,
I think it's mostly inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood, being that the immediate neighborhood is a riverbed full of animals. And this could potentially have negative effects on the wildlife in the area. Or are we talking immediate neighborhood just where people live?
you can have that be whatever you would like it. to
Okay,
be.
then
So
that's,
it's inconsistent with the character of the immediate neighborhood. And because it's, inconsistent with the natural character of the Salinas River setting, for example.
yes, the natural character of its current setting. Is that specific enough? Yes, okay. Sorry, trying to sum up all my thoughts into 2 sentences is very
There's
difficult.
been a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second.
Vice Chairperson Keen,
Yes,
Commissioner Carranza, Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Hughes,
No.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
No.
So that's 4 no's. So that is, does not pass.
Right. Do we have a second motion?
I'll have a second motion.
Okay.
I'm gonna try this before we have to build this tonight. So it is slightly different than the suggestion of and the motion of Commissioner Keen. I think it's regarding the finding number 1. I would like to. It's almost like I have 2. I have 2 different ones and I'm like, which one am I gonna get the votes for? Like this is the hardest part of the job. It's easy when it's unanimous, Ta-da. Yeah. I don't want to kick the can down the road. And what I said earlier still holds true, that I think that this proposed use I find it inconsistent with the general plan. There was a policy number stated in some of the public comments around enhance the rural character and appearance of the city, including commercial corridors, gateways, and public facilities. Land use, open space, and conservation element policy 1.3. And I don't believe it does. I want to see this item, I think, tabled rather than denied if our commission is not going to approve that. I'd like to see it looked at, tabled, not to an unknown date, but after the 2045 general plan update is finalized, and look at this zoning. Yeah, try it here. Look at this zoning as a specific site within the 2045 general plan. I'd like to recommend that and table this until that's finalized. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call on that, please?
Okay, Commissioner Carranza,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
No.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Vice Chairperson Keen, Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
No.
Motion fails.
Jeff,
Dennis,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the project with the modification on the phasing of the project, that the first phase of the project be approved right now only.
we have a motion. Is there a second on it?
I'll second.
We have a roll call on that, please.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Carranza,
No.
Vice Chairperson Keen, Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes. Where's Greg when we need him?
Sorry, that's split, so that also does not pass.
Mr.
What if we
It's
don't,
called a
can't
no.
come to a conclusion
So it's a
here?
no act, that's a no action.
Let's take no action.
Yeah, so basically a 3-3 is a no action.
And that's appealable up to the city council? Or,
What do we do with a no action? Let me just double check on that.
It's effectively.
it's still a no.
Yeah, it's still basically a no.
On the board.
So they don't get approval. It means they can essentially reapply based on the comments you've had, so they'd have to come back. It's a no action. I'd have to have my city clerk weigh in, and I'll ask her right now as we're continuing to discuss. One more thing I wanted to weigh in on too, is you had asked about this, its flood zone status. It is actually within a 100-year flood zone still,
It is.
based on the current FEMA map. Hasn't been amended. It looks like it should be amended, but it's still in that zone.
Mhm. Bill, do you have some advice for us on this item? How should we,
Patience, one moment. I'm just conversing with the city clerk, hoping.
Okay.
Um,
can we take a 5-minute break? So we can
great idea.
use the restroom and get some answers from Phil. So we're gonna pause for 5 minutes.
Jeez.
Look at it, Randy.
He stole Greg's and gave it to me because I emptied mine. Oops.
Okay, we are back. Is there more discussion on this item, Jason?
The chair would be so willing, I would like to ask staff a question. How much commercial area like this is available? Are we really limited on that in Atascadero, or is there open space still available?
In this particular zoning, there is about 10 acres of land that's privately owned. There's about 7 acres along Via Avenue on one side and about 3 acres on the other side. And a lot of land that I'll call underutilized, that's around sort of the Atascadero Hay and Feed Shop that's in this same zoning. And then there's this water company property along this area. And then there's some of the area that's kind of along Highway 101, that's zoned commercial park, which is kind of the next step up from industrial zoning. But there's not a whole lot of level land. And that's the difficulty is as we look out in the future, 10, 20, 30 years, our inventory of commercial land where we could have larger commercial or job producing or industrial uses is very, very low, especially when we compare that to our neighboring cities. We've got very, very little availability for inventory for the future. Tons of land that's, hillside sloped, oak tree covered, where you can put single family homes, but not a lot where you can do these larger land uses.
Okay, and one more question. If those was to be continued till the general plan was completed, which is what, 4 months away? 8 months away?
It's more like a year really till it's actually completed, but it's in the next 6 months, we'll be actually formalizing land use recommendations, preliminary recommendations, and talking about, what should be zoned and where that should happen.
And that would be, that would be able to have, you guys then would be able to look at this particular land and make some more general decisions about what happened to it in the 2045 plan.
Yes, we'll be talking about specific sites and specific zoning over the next 6 to 8 months.
I have a question for you, Phil, kind of on that same line. Now, say this project was approved with this zoning. What would happen if they could just look at this site and say, well, if it ever stops being developed, then we want it to be a different zoning? Would could the city change the zoning on something that's in a current usage?
Absolutely. We do it all the time. We have a lot of uses that we call non-conforming.
Okay.
For example, in our downtown around Sunken Gardens Park, we don't allow medical offices on the ground floor. But we have them and we will have them for some years to come until they cease activity for more than 6 months. So that's very common that the city changes its zoning and there's existing land uses, and those existing land uses can remain indefinitely until they're vacant for 6 months or more.
So if we were to approve it, it would be, and the city council and the general plan changed it, it would be just non-conforming. But if they ever came back for some kind of redevelopment, it would fall under the new
That's
zoning.
right. They wouldn't be allowed to expand. And if they disappeared for 6 months or more, they wouldn't be allowed to come back.
Thank you, Chair, for humoring me here. So I get that that could be a compromise that says, okay, we're going to recommend this. And then, before it gets developed or even after, if we do just phase 1 or something, that it could be rezoned. But there already is going to be a need to talk to the board of the AMWC. And there already is going to be a need to open it up to council and the general plan and the community workshops that we could highlight as a commission to look at this zone. And we could make that decision right now versus say, well, somebody else can do it that's in the audience right now, or somebody else can do it that might happen to look at an agenda item tonight. Who's going to do that? This is why we're here.
That sounded like a motion.
It would be the same motion that I made, which is going to be 3-3. So let's go ahead and do the one. Phil suggested.
we put it all on Greg.
It's all Greg's fault. So the motion I'm looking to try to cobble together to get an agreement tonight is to not put the applicant out, because I know he's got a lot of work in this. But it's at the same time, I think we don't want to rush it. So you've got half the committee is, if I can speak for the rest of you, that doesn't want this to be put in just without some further thought. And then the rest sound like they want to move it forward so they can finish this discussion. So trying to appease everybody is not going to happen, I don't think. And whenever that happens, I'm firmly in the camp of wait, because anything pushed through is always going to be the wrong answer when you have such a division. So I would make a motion to continue this. Does it need to be denied or?
It doesn't if you're going to continue this. No, if you're going to continue it, for example, until we can have a complete commission, that would be a logical motion, or you could continue it to another date, or you can go uncertain. You wouldn't have to deny it in that scenario. But you'd have to, if you're going to continue it, you need to say why you're continuing it and what you expect out of the continuation. For example, you could say, I need to continue this so that we can have additional analysis on X, or I want to continue this to a date certain so that we can have, a full quorum, a full, panel commission. Not that we can guarantee that, but those are the kind of things you would need to say. You can't just say continue indefinitely and no
Yeah.
reason, because that leaves us all kind of hanging. When can we come back, and what do you need for us to come back? Need kind of really specific direction as to what
What
you
I'm
want us to bring back to you and when.
What I'm really looking for is some feedback on what the general plan is looking for, what the staff is anticipating the general plan's gonna look like for this property in the future, and whether or not this plan is going to be consistent with that general plan that's going to be coming down the pike.
That is a logical continuation. You could say that we recommend this be continued until staff gets to a point in the general plan analysis to where the city council feels comfortable with the future land use designation of the site, that it's going to be matching what this conditional use permit is asking for.
Sold. There you go. Did you get that?
So
Yeah.
now we need a second.
Second.
I was gonna second.
Well, I'm saying, did we have a second?
Second.
Okay, fine.
I'm gonna second
All
that.
right,
That was
go
Tori.
Yes.
One
Okay.
of the Tories.
All right, so Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Carranza,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt, and Chairperson Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
I feel like I said that. But thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for waiting with us.
I think Greg owes us pizza now.
Greg has to bring the
Greg-
brown butter cookies next time.
Greg can bring us pizza
We just,
next time.
yeah, we saved Greg. Excellent.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for being here. We will go ahead and have our director's report, please.
Chair, our next regularly scheduled meeting would be July 4th. You all want to meet on July 4th? Good. So I heard a no, well, from the chair at least. So July 4th is a holiday, actually. City Hall will be closed and we won't have a public hearing. So July 18th will be our next date. I know that we'll have at least one item on there because we did continue one of the items tonight to that date. And more information to come on that. And then a lot of other projects that are happening in the city right now, a lot of things in the works, a lot of things that are starting construction. As you heard, California Manor is starting construction, it's a fairly big residential project. The marketplace is starting construction there at Del Rio and El Camino Real. The Edge project is starting construction between Highway 101 and El Camino Real, just north of Bay Laurel Nursery, another nice big commercial project. And so a lot of things moving right now, a lot of good things happening. Questions?
Well, is July 4th, like the big bandstand stuff at the lake? Are we gonna be doing some marketing with the GP?
We are going to be doing some stuff. I don't know if that's going to
Independence
happen
Day.
on the 4th, but we do have some big outreach opportunities coming up for the summer. We're actually going to be talking about that with our general plan consultant tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So
Nice.
exciting stuff.
Well, everybody can start out their day on the 4th with a parade in Templeton and get some cotton candy at my booth. Support the Templeton drama. So we will go ahead and adjourn until our next scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.